Hello, and welcome to my May update video. So, like all the other months, what I'm going to do is I'm going to start by talking about what I learned this month, and then I'm going to talk about the highlights and the negatives of that month. So, the biggest thing I learned is to slow the hell down. I'm really bad at this though, so I'm not going to pretend that I'm an expert, but I want to say that I have been getting advice that I should do this, and I know that I should do this for years and years, and I have never really practiced it. And this month, I got somewhere with it. So the main thing that changed was that when I was in Vietnam, I would just go to cafes between work shifts. So I'd work in the morning and then I'd work at night. And in the middle of the day in Vietnam during April, I would go to a cafe and work on something. I looked at April and thought about it, and it was like, I don't really think I accomplished almost anything in those work on something hours, with the exception of some video editing that I did. And I really wondered why I was putting that kind of pressure on myself, like to do something all the time. And it's because I suffer from this syndrome that many Americans suffer from, where I feel like I always have to be doing something, and I feel like I always need to be productive. And I realized that it really hit me that this was actually making me unproductive. I'm consistently dealing with the problem of, having issues with pain in my hands and lower back from sitting in front of a computer. And I realized, you know what? I cannot do this anymore unless I really know what I am doing. My stress levels were much lower this entire month. And I didn't necessarily get a lot done, but I didn't get any less done than when I was going to the coffee shops before, so. Okay, so the other thing I learned may piss you off if you're not open-minded or even a little bit into the hippy-dippy shit. Or maybe you'll relate to it. I don't know. But I realized that I often get what I ask for. And this was a really radical idea to me because I sometimes think that I don't. And I sometimes whine in my mind, why don't I ever get this? Why don't things go my way? And I realized on so many occasions this month that a lot of things do go my way. So, for example, when I went to Japan, I stayed in a share house, and the first day when I arrived at the share house and realized there was all these people there, I was like, oh God, what did I do? I have to be around other people, and I have to hear their noise, and what if I don't sleep well, and ew, I have to share a bathroom with other people, ew. And this was a big deal because I had lived by myself the last 3 months, so I was preparing myself mentally for living with other people, and of course I was thinking, oh, it's gonna be terrible. And it was not terrible at all. But one of the funny things was that I remembered a conversation I had with my mom just 1 or 2 weeks ago about how I didn't like the way the travel was as much anymore. I didn't like, all the tourist sites and all of the feeling just like we were all just there to take pictures of Instagram, and how when I was a kid, I had imagined that I would live in a commune with other people in Europe or different countries, and that we would have a close-knit community, and that's what I had thought, travel and like an international lifestyle was like. And then here I was living in a guest house with other people who were passionate about Japan, and we had a community, and I was like, wow, I might not have the same privacy that I do as I do when I'm alone, but I basically got what I asked for when I was complaining to my mom 2 weeks ago. And just little stuff like this kept happening, where I would be mad about something, like I went on vacation and I was annoyed that it was dead. There was nobody there at the mountain resort where I went to. And I remembered, oh, you went on that vacation because you wanted to escape people, and now you're upset that there's no people here. Good luck. Who's ever going to please you? And I started laughing to myself. I was like, I am quite ridiculous. So that was a really nice revelation to have. Okay, on to the highlights and the not so highlights. A very important event that took place, that has been taking place in the last 2 months of my life, which is that I am dating somebody. Oh my god, yes. I've been single for a while, and I have dated people who are not really the right fit for me recently. And in April, me and a man started talking really regularly online, and then in May it got to be that we were talking every single day. We're making plans about the future, and finally we decided that we wanted to meet each other in real life and made a plan to meet in London. And I am recording the video from our place in Prague, so I'll tell you more about that. But this relationship really became serious in May, so I can't not mention that in the May video, even though I can't give you as much details as I would like to. So one of the highlights is obviously that I went on vacation in Korea. I really enjoyed my week in Seoul. I think it was an unusual choice because I hate big cities, but I managed to really like it anyway because it's such a convenient place and it was so quiet compared to Vietnam that I felt at peace and relaxed in this huge metropolitan city. I don't know how. I think everything is based on comparatives, really. Things are different for different people, and to me, Seoul was relaxing. My favorite thing about my trip to Seoul was a museum exhibit that a friend took me to that was on Asian identity, and there were just multiple different parts of that exhibit that were really intriguing. There was, for example, a video that was made about mice dying at a shopping center in Taiwan where they played German Christian music because there was apparently German influence, and that had become some German music had made it into these old folk songs. So it was really interesting. The other thing I really liked about Seoul was this one particular restaurant called Plant. I didn't really like any of the other food that I had there. I wasn't amazed by it at all. But this one restaurant, if this restaurant was near me, I would eat there almost every day. It was delicious. I will say it was really cool that there were a lot of Korean style baked goods that you could get vegan. So there were vegan markets, and that was awesome. The thing that I also liked about my time in Korea is it got me into the habit of riding bikes, and I continue doing that in Japan. And it was just a really great way to get around. If you are having any kind of problems with your legs, mine have been bitch lately, so I've really liked riding bikes. It's been great. Okay, so another highlight, and let's move on to the fact that I was in Japan. So I really enjoyed staying in the guest house in Japan, as I mentioned. I got to interact with a lot of other people that were passionate about Japanese, and it really solidified my belief that I want to travel in places where I have a real connection to the place. It was just so different to be in a country that it was my third time there. I knew the language, not fluently, but I could get by, and I just had a deeper reason to be there. And that was just very nourishing to me in May. It came at the perfect time. The other thing about the guest house I wish to mention is that I actually really loved my room, and I never had to share my bathroom. For some reason, I was in a bathroom that was the one nobody went in but me. So I never had to worry about that. One of the really awesome things about living in Kyoto was that I got to go hiking all the time. Whenever I wasn't working, I was taking a walk to some beautiful place. There were tons of little parks in the city itself. And then every weekend I was going on some different hiking or biking trip. little strolls in the evening in Japan down my street. Like, so these little tiny corners with small houses, and everyone has such a beautiful garden, and it's just so neat, and it gives you such a sense of peace, and it's so quiet. And you can hear the breeze. Well, I don't know what it is about Japan, but the breeze is like a person. The breeze just suddenly comes through when you're having a deep thought about something, and you're just like, yeah, thanks for getting me, nature. I appreciate it. Maybe I'm crazy for thinking this, but I don't know. It's kind of like if God is a thing and he or she is alive, I'm pretty sure she's chilling out in Japan. Just saying. She is definitely not in America. So something really crazy happened to me, and this is definitely not the first time it happened, and that is that when I choose to do something I really want to do, even if it's expensive, the money seems to find a way back to me. Now, I've seen things like where people said maybe it's just manifesting or maybe it's white privilege. I don't know. I'm open to that idea. But for some reason, whenever I really do what I want to do and make the choice to go to the more expensive place, the work comes in. This has happened to me both in Europe, but also also when I was in Japan. It was because of the months before that, when I was going to places just to save money, I was not making as much money. And then when I went to a place because I just wanted to go there, I suddenly start making money. I don't know. Maybe it's some hippy dippy shit, but it's cool.
はい、ビデオを作った。間違えた。でも綺麗。
I think this is probably obvious, but my Japanese is starting to get better, and I actually developed a study habit that I think that I can stick with even if I'm extremely busy. One of the people in my share house is developing an app for Japanese grammar, so I ended up working with him a little bit on this app, and I hope that I can work with him again in the future. But it was really cool because I was living with Japanese people who I could talk to, not only about life, we had lots of hikes together and talked about deep shit, but also just to practice the language with. So, yay. Okay, so the cons are really small. The con doesn't have anything to do with Japan, and that is that I hate working at night, and I didn't have the opportunity to hang out with as many people in Japan as I might have liked to. I was super lucky though, because most of the people that lived at my share house were not partiers, so I wasn't really missing out on anything. It's not like if I was off that night, we would all go out drinking or something. And we did once do that on a Friday night, so it was cool. But the major negative thing about being in Japan, which is so terrible, you're gonna be so upset, is that I didn't really like the food very much. The vegan food in Japan is expanding and it's getting better, but it's still not as good as in other countries. So yeah, I had one phenomenal meal at the vegan meetup in Kyoto, but that was really the only mind-blowing experience. I have to be honest, I just was regularly disappointed by the taste of the food, not the quality. I mean, it was fresh. The other thing that bothered me about restaurants is that they would be randomly closed. And this would really suck because sometimes I would ride my bike really far to go to the restaurant, and it would be kind of inconvenient because I had a very inconvenient schedule while living in Japan and in Asia in general. So it would piss me off. But I don't really think that this is a super big deal. But I would say that for long-term living in Japan, this is actually kind of problematic. You would really have to invest a lot in your kitchen if you're a vegan and living in Japan. The other thing is that I really like working at cafes, and I didn't like having to pay $5 for a coffee every time. If you make good money, I don't think it's such a big deal to have to do that, but it's a lot of money for coffee. It costs more than in the US, where I'm from, and it was difficult to find cafes like outside of the major metropolitan area of Kyoto, and I'd always have to ride my bike to go to them. It wasn't super convenient. I had a pocket Wi-Fi, so I cannot speak to the Wi-Fi connection at cafes, but I read that sometimes they didn't have Wi-Fi, so that's another issue too. Not a really big problem for me personally, but if you were considering living in Japan, that would be a problem. And then the last con is that the internet wasn't that great. I actually had a client complain about my internet, and that never happened in Thailand and Vietnam, that somebody verbally was like, that's not good, your internet quality is not very good. So yeah, I love Japan, but there are some surprisingly backward things about it, such as the fact that the internet's not that good, but also that they make you pay cash everywhere, which could be inconvenient at times. Fortunately, it's pretty easy to find an ATM, though there was an incident where they were all closed and I was shit out of luck. But again, these were not big cons for me in terms of the past month. They were really just things to consider, you know, in terms of like, do I ever want to long-term live in Japan and be a digital nomad there? And the conclusion I came to was that for my daily lifestyle and routines, it's really not the best country. For learning Japanese, and it's really the best country. So I might at one point have to make a compromise. Anyway, this has been a fun video. I hope you enjoyed it, and I look forward to making the next one for you. All right, everybody, have a wonderful day. Bye.